I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. My name is Gabriel St. Pierre, and I'm the chair of the Fall Mountain Regional School District Budget Committee. For tonight's hearing, if you have a question or comment to add to the conversation, come to the front of the room to be heard. When called upon, please introduce yourself and your town of residence. I ask that you write down or email any comment desired to be included in the written minutes, and when time allows, you'll be offered the floor to speak your question into the record for all to hear. This meeting is being recorded for posterity and for Zoom purposes. Our motto is Ulum Osimus Scandare Montem. We can climb any mountain. Through this discussion and the ones that follow, we will advance our efforts for the education of this region. Here today, these are the politics that matter to residents and students. The tax ramifications of this budget hit hard the families and homes of our districts. The cost of education is a heavy burden for most residents to bear, and we must be diligent in the review of our financials. For everyone in the room and online, I thank you for your time this evening, because time isn't free. I look forward to our conversation tonight, and I know although we may come from differing opinions, all opinions will be treated with respect and decorum. Thank you. Okay, we'll start tonight. Jamie Teague is offered to present our budget and an overview of how we got here. Jamie?
Hi, Gabe. Let me pull up the document that Lori just shared with us today. 1 second. I have it. Hold on. Make sure I have the right one here. Oh, there it is. Okay. There we go. All right. Let me get back. Sorry, I can't be with you. I have a hearing up here in Hanover at 7 o'clock. So the budget committee has met multiple times this year and multiple times with the school board as well and all the administrators. And we really want to thank you and tell you how much we appreciate the time and effort that you've put into the process. We realize that it's been a difficult year with all of the different changes and turnover in personnel or lack thereof at critical times. So our business administrator, Lori Schmidt, took the information that was shared at the board meeting on Monday night and has updated the Fall Mountain proposed FY25 budget overview, which is what I have on my screen here, and I hope you can see it. So the number that we actually started with was version 4, which was prepared for us and sent to the budget committee on Christmas Eve. Thank you, Lori, for your hard work. And we met on the Wednesday thereafter, Christmas Eve, and discussed a lot of different pieces and parameters. And things are still trying to be worked out. So when we came together with the school board on a couple of different occasions, we had discussed a few more bits of information and got some clarification on some things. And so from there, we then went home after that meeting and came back this past Monday. We were fortunate to have a very helpful and informative presentation this past Monday at the joint budget and board meeting, where the administration and the superintendent shared with us some of why the decisions were made on this budget version that was built and then handed over to the budget committee for review. So the number that we had started with out of version 4 as built was $34,832,144. That's what we started with the administration's build on Monday night. After much discussion on Monday night, I made a motion actually to bring it to the floor to get us started. And the motion was based on some of the discussion that we had as a full budget committee. And some was based on just what my opinion was at the point in time. And then it's of course still up for final decision because it can be changed or it can be adjusted tonight. So based on the information that was shared with us a week ago and this past Monday, the suggestion was made in the motion and seconded that from the $34,832,144, we would cut $200,000 and we would label it vacancy management because of all of the different positions that have been carried over and over the last couple of years, and that we wouldn't seek for those positions to actually be reduced in FTEs, but instead just to perhaps put a discounted rate into the budget of $200,000. There was approximately, and I'm sorry, I'm at my office here in Hanover and I don't have my documents in the car. I was going to hopefully try to get there, but so I believe there was approximately 20, right as of now, 24 or 5 positions that are open. And so $200,000 as a vacancy management, assuming we're all hoping that we can fill every single one. And if that does happen and the budget, it will eat up some other surpluses. And then also the budget committee is fully aware that if that were to happen and then the budget were to go into some type of deficit situation, which we don't believe it would, but if that happened, that it would not be the administration's fault and that we would have remedies to hopefully deal with that with some of our trusts, or if we had to do a default article. So we voted, part of the motion was to cut 200,000 and call it vacancy management. The other part of the motion, and we can't tell the administration, we understand that, on where to apply the funds, but we didn't want to blindly cut things without giving recommendations. So the other part of the recommendation for the $236,000 reduction that was suggested and ratified 422 on Monday night was 36,000, and it would be taken from the total pool that would be used for non-union salaries. Non-union salaries were projected in the budget at 5%. CPI is hovering between 2.5% and 3.5%, depending on what region you look at and what pieces you include in the CPI. So there was a 5% increase last year, and I think it was 3.5% the year before. So we were hoping that we could, we made the motion to reduce that, hopefully from 5% to a 4% increase COLA. So that would net a savings based on the information that we had for non-union of a 36, it was a little bit over 36,000. So when I made the motion, I rounded it off to 36,000. So that's how we got to the number that you see tonight on this document. And it's a little bit confusing, and it always has been. But I'm just going to walk through it, and I'm sure your BA could do this as well. But I said I would do it because the budget committee is supposed to present. So if you look at the numbers, total general fund is really the numbers that we as a budget committee and or school board work through and or change, make suggestions on. So with that cut, we came to 34,589,944. We actually were a little bit higher than that. I think there's a difference of about $6,000, and it may have been that when Lori was making her updates and adjustments that something was adjusted. Because when I looked at it, I think we're $6,000 or $6,200 different. We were a little higher. We were at 34. Hold on, I can tell you, 596,144. The difference is 6,200. But it absolutely could be that I think what Lori had said. Oops, wait a minute, I just lost my page. Was that some of that it gets moved to the bottom under the building improvements section, and we may have been looking at it or in the earlier version, as part of our number that we were working from. So that would explain why there might be that much of a difference. So that's where we are as of tonight. And I just lost part of my Zoom, so hold on. Oh, there we go. I'm going to stop sharing so I can get back to you. And so that's where the budget committee, and then the board also discussed it a little bit after the fact, on whether or not they would be in agreement with that number that the budget committee had ratified at that point in time, knowing that, you know, that can change. And so the board has to also take a position. And there we go. Here we are. We're back again. At the point in time that that was made on Monday night, the board, the straw poll from the board was that they could support that. The other part of what I wanted to mention to everybody is that when you look at the warrant article, it's always higher by this $2 million. That other funds line of the $2 million, that has offsetting revenue. Okay, so you can only spend what comes in. That's usually your grant funds or your food service funds, from state or federal. And so this number in New Hampshire has to be added to what our regular general fund total is. And we actually vote on the warrant on the whole total dollar amount. Okay. So if you came in and you were looking at this document and you said, wait a minute, we didn't ratify 36 million. We only ratified 34 million. You're correct, because we only get to the number for the general fund, and then it gets added to this in and out funding number that has offsetting revenue, so it doesn't affect assessment. And so right now, as built, we're up 3.3% over last year. So that's the bulk of the discussion at this point, or the decisions that have been made, and the information that you have in front of you. I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. At this time, does anyone from the budget committee wish to address the room?
Dave, this is Mike here. I just see a mistake on here, two mistakes, mathematical, minor. On the increase, decrease of the tax rates, the Langdon tax rate should be $3.35, not 36. And the Walpole tax rate should be $1.13, not 15.
Is that on the warrant article?
It's on the information on warrant article 1. That tells you what the tax is about.
Thank you.
I'm just assuming that the increase decrease is the 2023-24 subtracted from the 2024-25 rate.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you've
I mean, I
checked your math,
yeah.
then, yeah, we can take that into consideration.
Yeah, Gabe, could I ask Jamie a question?
Yes, Dave.
Just a curiosity, the other funds number, the first three columns are listed as actuals, but the number doesn't move.
That's true.
He's asking Jamie. So,
1 second. Hold on. I was going to share it again. I want to understand exactly what he's saying.
Kind of the room is having a really difficult time. We can't hear the questions over here. I just put a message out and try to shut the air off. So we can hear, but just so you know, we can't hear anything on here.
thank you.
We'll repeat the question.
Yeah, while Jamie checks on Steve's question, we'll go back to Michael Aaron's point. Michael, can you tell me the two numbers again, and I'll project them to the room.
In Langdon, the increase/decrease if you subtract 1390 from 1725, it has to end in a 5, not a 6.
So,
Yeah,
That's a rounding.
okay.
yes.
And the one in Walpole was similar, that's off by 2 cents.
Okay,
I just want to make sure these documents are correct.
understandable. Thank you for looking into it. So Michael's saying we're off by 2 cents on the Walpole number.
So I'm gonna go back to Steve because I didn't build the document, Steve. But I want to understand what question you're asking. I was looking at what the build was for what we had asked for. So you're saying these first 3 columns here, are you 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, the fiscal year 21, 22, and 23 are actual amounts,
Right?
but all 5 numbers under other funds, the numbers are identical.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you were saying.
And the first 3, I mean, that's an impossible coincidence.
Right. So these other funding lines, 1, 2, and 3 here were not adjusted to actual, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's quite possible. I'd have to ask Lori. I don't know the answer to that question. And
Okay.
if that's the case, I mean, it won't.
Right.
Right. It won't skew these 2 numbers over here, but
No.
it does. It should probably be made to actual instead of just
Yeah, it skews the totals.
Yeah.
For comparison, for comparison purposes, it skews the totals, but it
Right,
doesn't.
but
have
we
any impact
normally
on the
look at,
outcome.
we normally always look at the comparison in the yellow because this number here, you're gonna get the same amount of revenue as the expense, you know that, right?
course,
So,
of
so
course.
that's why we've always really focused on this yellow line. But to Steve's point, when we put the document out, if we're gonna say actual on the top, we probably should have put the actual numbers in these 3 columns.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks.
Jamie, we have an answer here from Lori. Lori, go ahead.
I just want to say that I use the format that has historically been used and the process that's been historically used. And so that has not changed in the past. I'm more than happy to change it. I applied the document and the format that has historically been used, which also ties into Jamie's initial comment about a difference of about $8,200. It is indeed a difference in the general fund line, because in our general fund budget that we have been discussing, there is $8,200 included in that for capital improvement projects to the Langdon office, the central office. And they are items that the district needs to bear and not the landlord. We do not have a capital reserve to fund those monies. But again, I did not want to move that the format that has historically been used. So that $8,200 is shown down where we typically show our capital improvements that are funded through capital reserve accounts.
Okay, Steve, does that answer your question? It's how it's been historically done with the formula?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I got most of it. She's not quite as audible, but that's just because I'm off site. Yeah, I just, if you're trying to make a presentation of where we were and where we are now, then regardless of the source of funds, actuals are actuals. And I'm not sure why we would carry a budget number 5 years in a row when 3 of the columns are actual columns. So, and I understand it's what's been done. It's just seems peculiar to me. That's all.
Point noted.
I would agree it's
Jane?
peculiar, but it doesn't have financial ramifications to the tax rates.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Any questions or statements from the school board? At this time, we'll open up to the room. Does anyone wish to come to the front of the room and make a statement? Or a question?
Hi, I'm Bill Rashansky from Charlestown. Can I address you? Okay. Don't understand what this letter at the back is saying. Doesn't seem to tie out with the sheet right before it. So it mentions that there were expensive positions funded through ESSER grants in the amount of $1,200,000. So what you're saying is, I believe, this sheet just before it, where you've got the $1,110,000 increase, that would have been $2,310,000 increase.
So the question, can I jump in, Gabe?
Yes, Jamie?
Yep. So Mr. Rajensky, so the question is, if they had, I think what the question is, you're asking is that if they had just added all of the ESSER funded positions to the budget, would it have gone up higher? Right? And it would have, and then the administration had gone back and they had made some cuts from the budget. I don't have the document in front of me, but it was in the amount of just under 900,000. So that the adjustment and increase you're actually looking at on the document tonight includes some of the ESSER positions, not all of them. And it also includes the net effect of the teachers union increases, the support staff union increases, and whatever other increases that the administration were looking to make. So there were some adjustments to all of those ESSER positions. They were not all added in.
And then in the schedule on that last letter, table 1, summary of proposed changes for the FY25 operating budget. What's the total value? You know, the total savings, is that the 900,000 you just referenced?
I don't have the document that you're reading from. I don't know what document you're reading from. Can you show Gabe?
Yeah, we've got a good understanding. So we're looking at table 1 on the one of the last pages, the last page of the handout. And Mr. Ashansky is asking what the total is of the summary of proposed changes as shown on this page.
Assuming those changes are in this budget, does the proposed budget include these changes? Because I want to know if the budget would have been 900,000 higher without these changes, or would it have been $1.2 million higher?
I'll ask our business administrator.
Yep.
Okay, so, in this table, it shows, all of these are reflected in the budget.
What's the total savings from all of this? Because the numbers still don't add up. Is what I'm getting
So
at.
this is not all inclusive, it was, activity that there was some transaction. So this is the total change in the budget.
So this is not a complete list of the cuts made, Mr. Ashansky?
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, this is not a complete list. It is an example of those cuts made, which are in excess of $10,000, which the budget committee requested. We requested this list for the heavy hitters, if you may.
And what was the total savings from all of these reductions?
Well, these reductions are part of the work we've done for the past few months. The original, probably version 1.2 of the budget came in at a 9% increase. I don't have that number in front of me now, but it was significant. So there have been substantial cuts made from version 1.2, 1.3, and now we're on version 1.4 of the budget.
I'll let it go, but the numbers still don't add up. So if you take that $1.2 million in the surplus, add it to the 110,000, it's only a 6.5% increase, not 9%. I just, your numbers don't add up. And that $1,110,000, that's based on FY 24, which has ESSER funds baked into it, is what I'm getting at. So that's in addition to whatever ESSER funds were in the FY 24 budget.
Gabe?
Yes, Jamie?
So the ESSER funds would have been not included in the general fund budget. The ESSER funds would have been in that dollar amount that we're talking about where the revenue comes in and offsets the expenditures. So it would have been in the other funds, the $2,058,733 line. It wouldn't have been up in general fund because they were grant funded. Grant funded don't sit in a general fund line. So we can.
There's no change in the line. There's no appreciable change in that line.
Correct, because it's the revenue that comes in is the only amount of revenue you can spend.
There should have
So,
been a whole ESSER funds coming in to offset the higher expenses in the general fund. If there's no change in other funds, then I have to assume there's no change in the general funds, so that those ESSER positions are still in there.
the
You know what
ESSER
I'm saying? You're-
positions don't
there's
sit, the ESSER positions don't sit for this year up in the general fund. They sit in the lower section where the funds, they're offset. A dollar comes in, a dollar can get spent out. So they're, if you think of, I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
But
so,
then
so
if
it's like a
funds change-
refund. It's almost like a
Right.
refund.
Okay.
Yeah, so any money
do.
that's spent, like if 900,000 was spent on salaries for these folks out of the grant funds, then what happens is every month you have to file at the state of New Hampshire and then they send the revenue back. But when you're looking at the fund reports, if you had all the fund reports, general fund is Fund 10. And so all of your grant funded people for right now, next year they'll be in 10, but right now the fund that they're sitting in is a 20 fund. It's like 21 or 26 or 27 fund. So the numbers aren't actually, they're not nested within the general fund. They actually sit in their own set of funds. And then what we do is we paid people and then we basically file for reimbursement against the ESSER grant monies. And then they send the money back to us. I hope that helps. Next year, if this passes the way it is, then they'll be in 10 fund and you'll see, and as you can see, the numbers have moved and they will be going up.
Thank you, Jamie.
And I don't know if Lori wants to add anything because it's not, I'm not managing the budget, she is, but that's how the grant funds work.
Jamie did a lovely job explaining that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Steve?
Yeah, Article 1 is the Budget Committee's article. All the rest of the articles, of course, belong to the school board. And Article 1 is prescribed by law, which is what appears here. I looked at the Article 1 information from last year right out of the annual report, and the first sentence is basically the same thing. But the following two sentences are new, and I don't know if the attorney's there tonight because I can't see who's there and who's not, but
Yes, he is.
okay, well, you're not supposed to be using your warrant article to politic, and those following two sentences are subjective. They're political in nature. They're almost designed to sell the article. And I don't think that's even lawful, but ask the attorney, and even if it's lawful, I think it's inappropriate.
Which two sentences?
The second and third sentence under the information on Article 1.
Can I raise my hand?
Yep, but first, Jamie, I'm going to read
Yep.
the Article 1 for those joining us online and those who don't have the information in front of them. Article 1 for the 2024-2025 school district warrant article and information. Shall the Fall Mountain Regional School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $36,656,877. Parentheses, 34,598,144 plus 2,058,733 for special funds. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be 35,482,623, parentheses, 33,423,890 plus 2,058,733 for special funds, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Fall Mountain Regional School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required.
I believe what Steve is talking about is in the information section.
Yes.
It's the last two words on the second line to the end of the paragraph.
Okay, for the information on warrant number 1. I'll read, and then Jamie, you'll have an opportunity to explain, and Steve, you can expand on your idea. Information on warrant number 1. This article funds the operating budget for the 2024-2025 school year, but does not include appropriations for any other article. The Finance Committee, and I believe these are the sentences in question.
Correct.
The Finance Committee and administration has developed a fiscally responsible budget that meets the needs of the district and maintains the programs currently in place. This leadership team in developing the proposed budget made a number of tough decisions. The projected tax impact for the updated budget amount as presently built is as follows, and the table is shown there. Jamie, did you have something to say on this?
Sorry, with the thing up, it takes me a minute to find the unmute button. I was just gonna say two things, but I understand what Steve is saying. The information on warrant number 1 doesn't actually go on the warrant. It can't be printed on the warrant. Only the article can be printed on the warrant. But I do get where it could be a bit misleading. I think it could be easily adjusted so that any opinion is out of it.
Yeah, last year we used only the first sentence. Now there are 2 more sentences that appear that are subjective in nature, political in nature. Even the Budget Committee didn't agree in full on this particular proposal. So to suggest that it's fiscally responsible, I wouldn't say we're even in agreement on that. But in any event, we shouldn't be using, whether it's negative or positive, it doesn't matter. We should stay out of the political arena on a warrant.
Point made. Mr. Upton, any comment?
I'd be glad to look into it. I'd be glad to look into it and I can advise the school board accordingly whether it's appropriate or not.
Thank you. Any further comment, question, or statement to be heard at this hearing?
One more point, Gabe, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Recommendations, they're listed as yes, no, or absent. Absent and abstain are not the same thing.
Misty agrees.
Okay.
We have
So
a
if,
message.
if indeed there are some people who abstain and others who are absent, we'll make that distinction, and they'll really be for possibilities listed then.
Yep, so noted.
Okay.
Mr. Chansky?
Same question, I don't feel it was answered. Where,
I'm gonna ask you so that our business administrator can hear the question and have an opportunity to, I can hear you fine and the microphone can hear you fine, but if you could project towards the administrator.
thank you. So where on the proposed budget sheet, with all the different columns, are the extra funds? How do we see that in prior years? And how do we notice now that they're gone?
This ties into the point of the question that, Merle was making about numbers not changing. And as Steve said, all of the special revenue funds, that's our IDA grants, it's our title grants, it includes our ESSER grants, are all summed up in addition to our food service grants and monies in that line item, that is the special, money. The positions do not.
How is that labeled? Exactly.
Special revenue fund, it's called other funds, it's down on the last, third of the schedule for the schedule.
That's the one just below total general fund and regular
Correct.
operating budget?
Correct. And what districts do, is they just have a flat line amount there, that it doesn't change year to year, it's if you receive more funds than you were anticipating, you have a public budget hearing, to accept and appropriate the funds. When the ESSER monies were granted, the guidance from the New Hampshire government was that those would be, treated as anticipated monies, not funding. So I'm not sure if there were public hearings previously, but for an anticipated revenue source, you don't have to have a public hearing. So I'm not sure that they happen. But the numbers, I can't account for why numbers weren't increased to reflect additional ones. They were not. I'm not decreasing them because they weren't increased.
So I guess that's my problem with this. ESSER flip. SAU60 and all of the staff, the teachers, the support staff, are fully aware that you're leading us off a cliff. No one ever said, oh, you're heading for a cliff.
Excuse me, Mr.
There's
Chansky.
consequences. It's not reflected in the budget.
I wish to make clear that our current administration did not steer us off a cliff.
The SAU did, sorry.
We have a new business administrator with us this year, as well as a new superintendent.
Okay.
How it has been done in the past is not a reflection of how it will be done this coming year.
We are in this budget, do we see ESSER funds? How do we verify what you're giving us? You couldn't even tell me what the total savings were on that table one. You're presenting table one like it's this wonderful thing. You're cutting a teaching position and fake detectors, 2 support staff, cutting all of this, but you can't tell me how much it's gonna save. Again, misleading.
The ESSER monies are not reflected directly in here. You're not.
And we didn't have public hearings, right?
You're not.
Never been notified. Public's never been notified.
I cannot account for historical.
Everyone knew we're heading over to, didn't tell the public. I
I,
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion.
Gabe,
Ms. Jamie?
and I don't want to get your name wrong, sir. I'm sorry, and I don't want to butcher your last name. So it's Bill, right? Bill? So to Bill's point, I think what we might be able to do is, and it hasn't been done in the past, and it is a point where we need to do a better job of sharing information. And so we can print off the same as we do when we share the information. Hopefully those are made public that we get at the school board level with where we're at in our budget year. like Lori runs us, or whatever business administrators there, we ask for a year-to-date fiscal expenditure record. And it's a report that comes off of the financial system. And so those can be run for any one of our funds. That is public information. And so we could do that and run the report for each of the different funds, right, that we get money for, so that you see revenue in, expenditures, you know, it's a budget report. It's a you know, general ledger report that shows money in, money out, where we're at, what we spent, all those things. And so I'm sure it may not have been done in the past. You know, we've been working through issues in the finance office over the last 2.5 years. But those reports are available so that we could make them available and say, you know, IDEA, this is how much we've been awarded. This is how much we've spent at this point in time. You know, this is how much is remaining. ESSER money, this is how much is awarded and available. This is how much we spent or encumbered at this point in time. This is how much money is still available, right? And so for the year that we're in, we can do that. We can't do it for next year yet because next year's not here, but we can show that, you know, this fund, and this fund have a closing date of this, which means they go away. The reason why you don't, and the other part of it is, the reason why you don't lower that number, I remember now, because sometimes I have epiphanies. The reason why you don't lower that other funds number is because, somewhat to Lori's point, if you go and you lower it and you lower it too low, right, and the budget's been voted at a certain dollar amount, and a new grant award comes in higher, then to her point, you have to have a hearing to approve and accept the money. I don't know if she said that. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself or repeating what she's already said. But we do have reports that are available that we could share, you know, either quarterly or what have you. But I mean, we track all funds, including food funds that I think are 21 or whatever. They're all tracked individually, and they're outside of and separate from 10 fund.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Mr. Oshansky, for bringing your points. This is not as explanatory as we would have wished this year. There is not the drill down that we desired as a committee. There is not the level of detail we'd like to be able to explain with tonight, but we are working to improve the system.
I just wanted to give everybody else comments first.
And you have,
Bill Rashansky, Charlestown. On the 1-4 meeting, there was talk about schedules that showed 8 people funded by the ESSER funds, or 9 people, it wasn't really clear which. And a note about people who were taken from, who started off funded with ESSER funds and then went to the general fund. Did you ever work that out?
Jamie, I believe that was your question on January.
Yeah, Lori gave us a handout on Monday night. Does anybody have theirs there that they could share with? Lori updated all of that, and it showed the savings and it showed the costs, and I believe it has everything on it. It was a handout she gave us on Monday night that she updated. So your answer, Bill, is yes, we did get that updated.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, this is one.
So then are you confident that there aren't a significant number of people who were moved over into the general fund? I assume that 8 people that were funded by ESSER are on this list, which is much more than 8 people. You know, this list of proposed cuts. Seems like you guys are cutting above and beyond ESSER and yeah. So, budget's going up.
This sheet that Jamie has referenced, that we received on it's stated, updated LRS, January 8th, 2024. Your question, Bill, is, are we confident that these 8 positions have not been moved into the general fund?
Yes, and those 8 positions, are those the ones that are being reduced? Commissioner?
We moved 8 positions from ESSER into the general. Okay, there were a number of positions that were not moved forward, but we do have 8 positions that are in the proposed budget. And those, some of those are, a good number of them are related to, our focus, program, which is projected to pay for itself. We've had success with the program this year, and we want to continue to build on that. That was an approved program. We also have the community liaison position that we moved into the general fund, half of the position and benefits. The other half, and because of our function, can be covered through Title I grants. For the McKinney-Vento work, for parent interaction, and other services like that. And we have indirect funds that we earn from grant monies that help cover things like that. We have 2 behavioral interventionists that we were moving over, but I think those are related to the focus program. We have a couple of interventionists for 2 separate attendance areas that we have asked to move into the grant. And in order to fund and offset those positions, we did go through and look to see where else we could cut. Our original budget proposal included additional positions. A number of those were removed from the proposed budget to help fund those items.
I'll have a context here. So you didn't just unilaterally move the positions into the budget without looking to cut other areas within the organization to offset that cost. But the position was decided to be in the budget that was critical to moving the needle on student achievement. So if you watch the school board meetings and presentations from the administration, we have done a good job to document our progress as a system. A year ago, we were below the state average. Because of the functionality around those positions strategically, from our administrators here, we were able to grow student achievement and move us closer to the state average. And in some instances, your children are exceeding the state average. So that's a very important distinction here. And I don't want us to get hung up on the position. At the same time, we have rising healthcare costs and the collective bargaining agreements that also are in fixed costs, they've been pre-negotiated. So it's not just the position going in on top of some things. We've done the work to kind of keep that particular function within the organization.
Spoke about those test scores. I hear that a lot. How much did they improve percent-wise, or can you explain that?
I don't have the exact number in growth, but I can tell you we again are either at the state average in critical areas or we have exceeded the state average. And so we're moving in the right direction from an operational and student achievement perspective. Much credit to those positions and the way that it's functioning in the system.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then, Ms. Whittle.
And Kimmy Bevan, Walpole. I'm just wondering if there's a public document that shows the methods used for funding.
I,
Can't find it anywhere.
I would have to look into that, I don't.
What?
They should be in our bylaws, but I don't know where that is located on our website.
What are you asking specifically?
I'm asking if there's a public document where we could see the various methods and what's funded under each method.
Articles of agreement,
And it is on the website.
and it's on the website, yeah.
It's right on the.
Okay, great. And were there any changes made in the methods, in what's funded by which method this year?
So the changes that were made, were, I did move some activities from one method to another to align it with the article. An example that comes to mind is our English as a second language, position. That's a district-wide, service, and it didn't seem appropriate to have it charged to the high school. Services are provided district-wide, they're provided in group settings, so it could be multiple applications. With special ed services are as well, that is 6. And we shifted some of our services into method 6 because again, it's a district-wide service and people go where they are needed.
They're not assigned to a building per se. We have special ed programs, that those weren't, some of them were in method 6, some of them weren't. So rather than charge a district-wide program to an individual community and then collect tuition for those students coming in, I moved them into method 6, so it's allocated district-wide.
So that would assume that, a program had equal, usage across the district.
It has equal access across the district. It's a service provided to any student in need. If we have a para that's one-to-one and assigned to a student, those individuals have been charged directly to the community that from that student, in which the student resides. The program as a total is, it's developed and designed to be accessible by everybody.
Right, accessible by everybody, but if a program, a district-wide program predominantly had students using that program from one town, one attendance area, that now is going to be split district-wide.
Mhm.
And so all towns would share in program cost that is predominantly, have a much higher percentage of usage by another town.
So when we reviewed the articles of agreement, which have not, this method guidance hasn't changed. We felt that this was implementing the intent of the method.
So you can assume that for how many years that has been done incorrectly? I mean, I know we can't go back, but I'm just saying, is that legally is what is being said, is that it's been done?
It hasn't been done, it hasn't necessarily been consistent. Again, we had some programs that were in method 6 and we had other programs that weren't. And I'm not sure that it was based on the participants. It was just, it's housed in this building, so anything that's housed in this building, we always charge it to this building in this community. But that's not in accordance with the language of the methods and the articles of agreement.
And legally, it seems like that's more in line with what should be done.
So articles of agreement are difficult to write. And one district may have heavy needs one year, another district may have heavy needs the next. And has to be some flexibility in the methods you use and how you allocate them. And you can't really base it totally on usage unless you want to try to break down services to units and then build them out that way, but that's not the way your articles are constructed. It's just, it becomes too, what, you know, do we get down to allocating pencils one at a time? You can get to that level. You're, quite frankly, I was just talking to Melissa saying, I have never seen such complicated articles of agreement anywhere else in the state. Which means you're really trying very hard to allocate your expenses as accurately as possible. But there is some level of just by everybody having access, there's some value in that, not necessarily usage. And again, what goes around comes around. You may have a student who needs more 1 year. Charleston may need more of that service the next year. It's part of the process.
I won't belabor it, but I would think that we would really want to look as a budget committee, as people representing your towns. Historically, if it's a district program, for example, a special education program, you could look back 20 years and you can see what percentage of that program was billed to Charlestown, what percentage was billed to the Allison attendance area, what percentage was billed to the Walpole attendance area. And you could look at that historical data and you could see what really would be fair for towns. And when you then lump it all and spread it out, I think you'll find that that's causing an inequity between towns. Just purely based on population. You know, the population of one town versus another town.
For what it's worth, I know that there is an effort to look at the articles of agreement and see if there's a more simple way to go about charging back costs and making sure that the articles reflect current practices and current needs.
James up at Charlestown. I might have missed the answer to the question. Were there any positions being done? Yes, I don't have an exact number for you. On the handouts on the front of the page, there is one sheet that shows a number of cuts made from equipment and personnel. That is not the full extent of the cost. There were more. So you guys hired 8 positions with the SI. Is that correct? There were more than 8. So we all knew that SI grant had its time cost. Let me clarify. We does not include the current administration. This is not a decision of the current administration or this budget committee. That is a previous administration decision, and we are living through it now. The ESSER cliff is one we need to scale now. It will not be easy, but we cannot leave the students in a lurch by cutting every position. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But now, because of previous boards did not prepare that properly, the taxpayers are going to be ones holding back. That's not fair. Now, I call it, I can't say it, but you gotta do something. I don't want you to think you either, or just neither. I wholeheartedly understand that. But you sit here, ask us, raise that amount because the previous boards didn't prepare that time block for an animal. That's not okay.
Hi, I just want to offer some perspective, kind of from a layperson, because that's how I see these ESSER funds. So in 2020, 21, 22, and now 23, we were given all of these funds for one-time expenses that were going to help alleviate some of. You can't hear me? Okay, I'll try that again. So from kind of a layperson perspective, because that's how I look at all of this, okay? We were given these funds by the government to use to take the losses the students had and help alleviate some of those things. These funds were for one-time expenses, such as a roof that we needed. That was not something that was going to be brought to the taxpayers later, one and done. It was for some programs that we wanted to see if they were going to benefit our district. Last year, we approved one. We went through the whole year. We've seen marked success with this program. It's something we've had plenty of conversation about and have decided to move it into the budget. It was ESSER funded to see if it was going to be successful. Those positions have been moved into the budget because we can see that there is a benefit to the students, to the staff, and it also allows us to bring some students who have been going out of district back in district, which is fiscal savings for the taxpayer. We've had several great reports of this, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future. It's going to continue to benefit our students and our staff and our community. So there's several of those things. There were several other positions funded through ESSER that aren't going to be going forward. And the people in those positions were hired with the caveat that they knew it was grant funded. They knew it was not a guaranteed position. If it was going to be successful, we would find a way to fit that into the budget. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So there are people who are not coming back because they were ESSER funded and they're not being moved into the budget from the grant. In order to take the positions that we've deemed important and necessary to this district, the administration has worked tirelessly all year to find things that they can take out of the budget in order to bring other things in. And so what you're seeing for a bottom line increase includes some of those, but not the extent of it. But it also includes things like the $488,000 second year increase to the teacher contract that we all approved. It includes the $198,000 third year of the support staff contract that we've all approved. There's other things like health insurance increases. There's other small things in there. But when you look at a 3.18% increase, that is a significant decrease from the original all-in budget. And so I just want everybody here to know that when we talk about ESSER, all of this increase is not due to a flurry of just throw it in the budget accounting. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light and a little bit of understanding for how we got to this place. Thank you.
Jamie, all set? Thank you. Yes. Ms. Sullivan?
I would just suggest the next time you have skating like this, that you have a microphone, because it's very difficult. I can't see Alyssa, and I'm watching her, and her lip sync isn't going to what she's saying. It's very difficult. I understand.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Mr. James.
The kind of complicated question, and I'll just start with saying, lost my trust past administrations. And question whether we even need this $1,110,000. You don't have the kind of detail you need. If you can't drill down, you can't tell me how much we're going to save. It's about some data we want. Then his members of the budget committee tell me why you think Article 1 should be passed. What did you do to come to the conclusion that the budget needs to be increased $1,110,000? What did you check? I know that's kind of a complicated question. Is there anything you can point to and say we did this and we verified 50% of the budget or 80% of the budget? Something that's going to stop me from getting up at deliberatively saying, I want to cut the budget to $1,110,000.
Nothing is stopping you from making that amendment.
That's not what I wanted. It's actually the real question. What did you, why did you need 1,100,000? What did you do that made you decide? What did you check? What information were you given that made you decide this is a good idea?
Let me take you through my notes.
Yes.
You're all- 6/28/2023, Budget Committee focus areas, behavior, teacher efficiency, structure utilization, 2 groups of students. Invested in iReady. Is it good for students? Is it worth the money? Request for information, how much we finished the year with? What is the Goldilocks number for class size, each grade, process for in-between, methodology for splitting? List of all requests for information. Where was the surplus? And was it replicated in the next year's budget? Should I go on?
Well, so what I was kind of hoping for is that you would have requested a payroll report and had everybody's payroll. And then just very simply come up with the total based on whatever the contract says. Because the payroll is a large portion of the budget. And it's verified, we were able to verify. How much of this 1 million is due to the payroll? It's verified.
Let's find an answer to that question.
Where the benefits, that's another one we get hit with, it's benefits. Was that verified?
The 16% increase for health insurance has been verified, yes.
Then how much is that? What's the total dollar value of that? What's the value of that?
I can take a note of that. Do we have an answer for that now, or we can have?
No, I'm taking questions and I'll have them. I mean, I can tell you that I can't provide by law, there's information that's protected by law that I cannot give the details to
I
them.
don't care about
to
the
drill
names,
down.
it's so easy to print a payroll.
Mhm.
And then just have another column where this is the payroll for the next year, and you can calculate the total increase. Did you do that?
Yes, of course I did that.
And how much money was that? There's $1,110,000 increase, how much of that is payroll?
Mhm.
So that is benefits. That's 80% of the pay, great. And I'm probably okay with this, but I have no trust in faith.
I think we're at 88% is salary and benefits. 88%
That's
of our,
100% of the budget.
and that's a rough number. But I believe that's where we're at. It's
So
88%.
somebody just check that.
I absolutely will check that and give it to, provide that to
It
you.
hasn't been checked. Or
I'm sorry. I don't have the precise percentage to give to you right now. I have gone through this many times.
thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else from the budget committee wish to address the question on how we got to the.
Gabe,
Yes, David?
so hold on, I gotta put I don't know how to make my video. Okay, there we go. All understandable questions from Bill. We've poured through a lot of data, Bill. We've taken raw data that Lori provided, sorted it by the object codes, which means salaries, benefits, every single benefit line item. We didn't do it by the person because, quite frankly, this budget committee is a committee of volunteers. And so the amount of time it would take to go through every single person to see, what contract they're on, what union contract they're on, what step they're on, and do all the math to make sure that the person that we hired and put our trust into was doing it properly, that's hugely labor intensive. But yes, I did that by object code. I believe Mr. Verone did that by object code a little bit. There were some errors to begin with, and we've worked through them, and some of them were systematic. And so I'm sorry that it's not a great feeling of confidence. What I would say to all of the people of Fall Mountain, if they want to hear it, you have a default budget. It's $1.1 million lower than the budget that we're putting forward if it stands. You can vote no. And if people all vote no, then they have a default budget and it's $1 million lower. And they'll deal with it if that happens. And there will be cuts because when we vote to approve different contract increases, it makes budgets go up. You don't always get to cut and carve out enough money to make it fit. And I get it's unfortunate and it's a larger number. I was going to make one other point, and then unfortunately I do have to go because I have to go do a budget hearing for the district I work for. But you know, they are legitimate questions. And the last point I was going to make, and then I'll sign off. And I'm sorry if you want to email me and continue the conversation, I'm happy to follow up. The other point I'm going to make is that, you know, all of these positions, there's going to be openings for the budget committee and those positions. And I would encourage people to stick your name on the ballot if you want to dive deeper and look into more stuff. You know, there was a lot of meetings that there were only 5 people there and they're the same 5 people. And Bill did come to some of the meetings. And so, you know, we're going to work towards having it be more transparent with the documents. We have a brand new BA and she walked into a bit of a mess. And so she's been cleaning it up. And, you know, we can only hope to get better from here. Thank you for your time tonight. We really appreciate you coming out and being a part of it because that's important.
Thanks, David. Thank you, David. And just to add to you look at bulk calculation, you'll see 3 biggest increases all based on sale, like based on the contract. What's that agreement was $179,000. The teacher agreement in the second year was $188,000. The health insurance increase is $428,000. If you just look at those 3 numbers, that's the bulk of the increase. Those are what obligations we have to take.
Assuming they were calculated correctly. So I realize you guys were working with general ledger code. What I'm saying is you just get a payroll report. You tie it to the W-2s if you really wanted to make sure they're giving you the correct information. And it's okay to have names and dollar amounts. The town of Charlestown will provide that if requested. I understand. So why did you think $1,110,000 more needed to be added? You could have just proposed the default budget.
Dr. Spence?
I will say this, we're in times of economic uncertainty. I understand that, and I understand that there has been, there's been a lot that's happened previously. I said, I understand we're experiencing times of economic uncertainty for various reasons at the macro level, just the state of the country. At the same time, we've inherited a system. I've been brought here to improve the system and to move student achievement forward. Whatever the will of the people is, I will work with those pieces, but there will be consequences for what I'm able to do in regards to moving and driving instruction forward. The children only have one shot. I only have them while they are in the system. So whatever the will of the people, it impacts the pieces and tools that I have to which I have to work with. And that we have to appreciate that as much as I appreciate the increase in the tax rate. We are trying to do the best. We had very tough decisions. We tried to make cuts that would be the least intrusive to student learning to allow the students to achieve and prepare them to be competitive in an ever increasing competitive market. And I get it. The decisions were made to look at positions that were going to be least intrusive and to build and to look at this as a rebuilding year to move us forward. And so that was the rationale behind administration. We would never propose anything that was irresponsible. We're trying to be as tight as we possibly can with the budget, given the circumstances to which we inherited to work with.
understand, but I just want to let you know. The budget committee did not start with a budget and say, can we add anything? We were given a budget, I gave an information, 9% over the current budget. And we looked at that and said, how can we cut that down? So we cut and we cut and we cut. Again, the budget committee can only give a number. That's it, we can suggest, you can do these positions, you can do this, but in the end, all we can do is a number on the warrant article. And then the administration can do whatever they want with that number. But we didn't add anything, but we were cutting throughout the year.
But there's a $1,110,000 increase. Why did you stop cutting there?
We couldn't find any more to cut.
But you also didn't have good information. Thank you.
Is there anything else to come before this hearing tonight?
Gabe,
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this here right now, but I'm hearing some of the concerns.
If you could introduce yourself to the
Oh,
council.
I'm so sorry. I am Lisa Mulhern. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math in Walpole.
And your town residents?
Swansea, New Hampshire. Am I allowed to speak? You can tell me now.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm hearing some of the concerns, and part of it was the extra fund positions getting brought to the budget. And I wanted to, that of those 8 positions, 2 of them, which are the math and prevention, aren't new hires to the district. They are people who've been employed by the district for a long period of time. The district went through some restructuring, and those positions were ESSER funded this past year, but it's not like they went out and hired 2 new people because there were ESSER funds. They were people who had been employed, who had been teachers for a long time, included in the fall mountain budget. They were able to cover them with ESSER funds last year, which was great. Fall mountain got savings. There was a restructuring because we did feel that there was a need to emphasize mathematics, that while we've seen growth and improvement, that as a district, it's an area of weakness that we need to address and work on, that we really need more supports for struggling learners in math, and that the interventionist is really what's needed to address the need. So when the restructuring happens, interventionists were created, but not new hire interventionists. Teachers who had been teaching other things became interventionists. And it's 2 out of the 8 weren't just straight up increases to the budget. And a big part of it is that while we've shown growth and improvement, Dr. Spence has done a great job of bringing forth data. We do need to work on our math scores. And 2 of those 8 positions are math interventionists. And we're looking to meet the needs of students. We're looking to support our struggling learners. We're looking to make the high school curriculum accessible to all students, make a high school diploma, within reach of all students, where they can meet that Algebra 1 requirement that's required by the state. So we're looking to support those. I can't speak to all the other positions, but I can speak to those 2. And I heard your concerns and just wanted to speak to what I knew. And thank you very much for being here and asking questions and being concerned and wanting to know, why is this being funded, why is this being supported, and where it's coming from. So I greatly appreciate your interest. And
Thank you for the information.
I hope that's okay. I know it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Steve Earle?
I'm just curious, Lori, did we get a handle on the Langdon tax rate? We saw a big dip from 22-23 to 23-24, and then a very large increase the following year. I can't, I can't explain that, but I'm hoping maybe you've had some time to because it's the 24% hike next year is more than twice of anybody else. So I'm just wondering what's driving that.
So there, one of the methods for, like facility costs is based on insurance replacement values. And, the replacement values for the Langdon properties, almost doubled. So that's a significant driving factor. I asked why that was the case, and, they said that they had done a very, thorough walkthrough with building pictures and photos and details. It's a 56-page document from Liberty Mutual. And the increases were based on, that analysis. Part of it is due to the fact that, the pandemic and the, insurance industry, didn't react and didn't do this over the years. They didn't react fast enough to rapid inflation that occurred in building costs, whether from lumber or labor. And so this resulted in many insurers, losing money, and that the high inflation would continue for several years. So this is updated annually. We might see it go back down, but that's built into our articles of agreement, and it's not something that's open to interpretation for me. I am directed by the articles of agreement to use the building replacement cost as a basis for that method to allocate facility costs. There was an increase in ADM by 10 students. So that, of course, increased the Langdon's share of costs that are spread across using ADM and based on ADM. When there's an increase in number of students, there's also an increase in number of devices. So there are more computers or Chromebooks that were allocated to Langdon students. And that is also tied in directly to our methods in the articles of agreement. Those are the primary areas that I see that are driving the costs.
Thank you, Mike. Steve, Earl, did that answer your question?
To a degree, yes. I mean, there have been 2 teachers in that building for the last 3 years, and that's probably your biggest expense. So it does seem odd that it went down and then it went back up again. The method you're referring to regarding building replacement cost certainly is a factor. It's not a big method in terms of allocation of dollars. The ADM you cited makes a little more sense. That one I can, that one works without seeing the numbers, but at least that one computes much better for me. So again, I don't live in Langdon, but I do think we'd want to be prepared to answer that question.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve.
And one more, Gabe, if you would, and this is for Attorney Upton. And you might have been asked this question today, I don't know, but when we came out of the meeting the other night, we came out with what I guess we referred to as a straw poll, 4 yes, 2 no, and 2 abstained. We're an 8-person board. I didn't know if we needed 5 yeses for that to be a majority, or 4-2-2 is still, is a motion that passes. I think it is, but I thought it'd be better if we heard it from you.
I think you're correct. I think it passes.
Okay. I think so too, but just wanted to be sure.
I think it's a majority of those present and voting. You had 2 that were not present or not voting.
No, we had everybody present. We had 4 yes, 2 no, and 2 abstentions, not absences, abstentions. Does that change your opinion?
No, the abstention is the same as they didn't vote, correct?
Correct. They were present but didn't vote.
It was but a majority of those voting approved it.
Well, everybody voted, I guess. I think you're right. I think it passes. I just wanted to hear from you. That's all.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Steve. Jeremy Wood.
Jeremy Charlestown. So based on coming back to the ESR post services. In the, over the years, it's increased $10,000 and $15,000, it's dropped $10,000 years. Go back up to $73,000. The other January report, we talked around instead of $114,000. So state police are leaving, from what I understand, yes, not.
If I can clarify the question so everyone can hear it. The SRO is a school resource officer at Fall Mountain Regional High School. As the discussion has gone, we had a proposal from the Langdon Select Board to provide an officer full-time for the school year, 182 days, whatever it may be. That proposal is $114,000 to have that amount of coverage. Where we stand now is that the budgeted amount of $80,000 is going to suffice for whatever coverage can be provided. Right, that's correct.
So are you hiring somebody to certify it, or is this still Langdon that's providing that service?
Langdon is the jurisdiction. It must come to Langdon or the sheriff's office. And the sheriff wants nothing to do with it. The state police can provide coverage, but they do not have the personnel available to do it. So this would be a new officer coming into the Langdon system.
So I just did a really quick analysis in the budget, and after the various adjustments that have been made over the last week or so, we are looking at 80.45% of the budget. So 80% of the budget is attributable to wage and benefits. I will have something that is more precise that will be available on the website by the end of next week. That will have the breakdown, and we'll have a pie chart showing, you know, what is the equipment, what are our supplies, what is the salaries versus benefits, and that type of detailed information. I just did not have an opportunity to have it for tonight.
So that's $80,000 for the school resource officer. Is that 100% covered?
It is 100%, but that is the amount that is in the budget at this time.
100% covered? No.
No, not necessarily.
What is
That's gonna have to be a discussion between administration and the town of Langdon, select board of Langdon.
I think it's fair to say it's in negotiations. What we did was we told the administration we have $80,000 to negotiate with the language. Get as many hours of an SRO as you can for $80,000. That's what we told them. If we get full-time, that's great. If we don't, we should get some hours. And the rest of it will be, if the Langdon Police Department decides they want to hire a full-time officer, they take the other part.
I'm sure there's been a lot of work that's gone on behind Terry Silver and Charles Lee. I'm sure there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes. And yeah, I'm in this whole presentation, it's scratch. I don't know whether we need the PowerPoint presentation, something that sort of marches us about it. Here's the baseline, this is where we were last year. This is what's changed, this is what's gone up, this is what's gone down, this is the way the administration presented it to the school board, this is the way the school board presented it to the budget, maybe this is what the budget gets done. It's a frustrating evening. I suspect I'm not the only one who feels that way. I've been back quiet, trying to absorb it. I have a really hard time following. So if I could just get a rough confirmation that I'm understanding that it's correct. If we all look at the page that has the default budget, concept, without getting into the specific details, the concept of a default budget is that we begin with last year's approved budget, 35,059 as a baseline. And we make a series of adjustments. A lot of it, basically, it's laid out in statute, right? I don't think we have discretion. So we have $1.7 million of reductions. Okay. Some of them are small capital projects that aren't recurring. The basic concept is non-recurring events, non-recurring expenses. And the elimination of positions, for example, is a very significant chunk of that, 683,000. So here's $1.7 million of things that aren't happening again. That's a reduction. It doesn't stop there, of course, because we then have the increases. If you just take the support staff agreement, the teacher agreement, and the health insurance increases, you're already up around 1.1 million. Throw in the focus positions, I don't even know what that is, and you're at 1.3. And yet, the proposed budget is something like $1,175,000 higher than the default. So am I right in understanding that we've got all of these increases baked into the default budget, yet we end up with an operating budget that is 1.1 million even higher than that? And I don't think there's anybody here who's capable of going down through these line items, which are all summary, and really understanding, but that's sounding like if you take away the non-recurring things, what we're doing is going to cost us about $2.3 million for them. That's very hard to digest on the sketchy information that's being presented tonight. And I think we've got a new administration. And I'm sure it's been a huge learning curve, and I want to give them credit. We always have turnover in our boards. The budget committee is only in its second year, and last year was kind of a mid-year start. So I think we're still learning, and I want to cut a lot of slack. But I would beg you to come up with a completely different approach to making the presentation next year.
Thank you, Mr. Spilsbury. Is there anything else to come before this hearing?
Are you talking through the articles as well, or just straight budget?
We have to go through the articles as well, yes. So the hearing to do with Article 1, and then we can move on.
Are we voting recommendations tonight, Gabe?
Afterwards, yes.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Afterwards, yes.
Afterwards, not article by article, okay.
You prefer to do it now?
What's the will of the committee? Do we wish to?
You like.
Yes, let's go ahead and fill in the blanks here. The school board recommends this article by vote of yes, no, absent, and abstained. The budget committee recommends this article by a vote of yes, no, absent, and abstained.
I do have Jamie's votes. She had to go to her meeting. But she's still there, so.
We need a motion on this. I'll entertain a motion for the recommendation of Article 1 from the Budget Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Michael Aaron,
Second.
seconded by Amanda Chafee. Roll call vote. Michael,
Yes?
Ahmed,
No.
St. Pierre, yes.
Alessio, yes.
Chafee, yes.
Steve,
Abstain, abstain.
understood, thank you.
All right, at this time, I'm gonna take a roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie's a yes. No. At this time, I'll take a roll call of the school board on Article 1. So. Jamie's vote? Yes.
Sarah, have you given me her?
Joe, how do you vote?
Yes.
Shelley?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Alyssa, yes. Jenny?
Yes.
And we have one online who is not voted yet, so
She's Sarah.
she is, she couldn't get in, so she's only voting, but I think she's been listening in.
She's.
Yes. Thank you.
Moving on to Article 2. Shall the Ackworth voters vote to appropriate $3,200 for capital improvements to the Ackworth Community School to replace 2 windows and close in 4 small windows, with said funds to come from the Ackworth Schools Capital Reserve Fund? Is there any comment on this warrant article? Okay, we'll go to a roll call vote of the Budget Committee. Michael,
Yes.
Ahmed,
Abstain.
St. Pierre, yes.
Alessio, yes.
Chafee, yes.
Steve Burrell,
Yes,
Yes. School board?
Joe, yes.
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 Alyssa, yes. Yeah, Jamie, yes. Yes.
moving on to Article 3. Shall the Alsted voters vote to appropriate $36,200 for capital improvements to the Alsted Elementary for asbestos abatement and Violet Middle Schools to repair outside gym stairs and replace library carpet, with said funds to come from the Alsted School Capital Reserve Fund? Any comment on Article 3? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Michael,
Yes.
Ahmed,
Yes.
St. Pierre, yes.
Alessio, yes.
Chafee, yes.
Barone, yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Joe, yes.
Shelley, yes.
Alyssa, yes. Jenny, yes. Yes.
moving on to Article 4. Shall the Charlestown voters vote to appropriate $114,500 for capital improvements to the Charlestown Primary School to repoint bricks and replace the gym floor, and Charlestown Middle School to abate asbestos in 1 classroom, installation of any split in the office, install outdoor basketball hoops, and replace stairs by the kitchen, with said funds to come from the Charlestown Schools Capital Reserve Fund? Any comments on Article 4? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Michael,
Yes.
Ahmed,
Yes.
St. Pierre, yes.
Alessio, yes.
Maybe yes.
Yes.
Barone,
Steve
yes.
Barone,
Joe, yes.
Oh, yes.
Alyssa, yes. Tina.
Yes.
Article 5. Shall the Walpole voters vote to appropriate $92,000 for capital improvements to the North Walpole School and the Walpole Elementary and Primary Schools to abate asbestos in one classroom in each building and installation of a walk-in freezer in Walpole Elementary School, with said funds to come from the Walpole Schools Capital Reserve Fund? Is there any discussion on Article 5?
Yeah, one question. It says installation of a walk-in freezer. Does that mean one doesn't currently exist, or we're replacing what's there?
My understanding that it does not currently exist.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It was her understanding that currently exist.
They have a reach-in and not a walk-in.
They have a reach-in, but not a walk-in.
Okay, so they're replacing a reach-in with a walk-in, and I'm assuming the same location. Any idea what the cost of that particular component is?
Steve, Lori is looking for that number.
Thank you.
While we're looking for that, on the information on warrant 5, it says, it says Walpole, in the Walpole Capital Reserves Fund, but then it says it's tax neutral. And then it says the balance of the Charlestown Capital Reserve Fund. Is that just an error? A grammatical error? It's supposed to say Walpole?
Yes.
Okay, so the Walpole Capital Reserve Fund has $352,487.56.
Probably want to check that, figure out which one's the error. The town name or the dollar value.
Lori?
So, the estimate that I have for the walk-in freezer is 20 grand.
What, 20,000? Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Laura, do you have the ability to check on the Capital Reserve Fund for Walpole?
Before we go to press anyway.
That is correct for Walpole.
Okay, so the error it's just the town name.
It's just the town name.
Yeah, good catch.
Yeah, give me information for says Charlestown, that's on it. 1,500.
That's no issue, yeah. Missed that one. See that, Ilsa? And the information on warrant 4.
Well, it says we have 396,886.
Right. That's right. I'm wrong. Happened.
Good to hear.
Okay, any further discussion on Article 5? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Michael?
Yes.
Ahmed?
Yes.
St. Pierre, yes.
Alessio, yes.
JPS.
Barone, yes.
Oh, yes, sorry. I know it.
Shelley, yes.
Yes.
Alyssa, yes.
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 If I could just clarify the echo. We're grateful to have Brendan here tonight. There are 2 sets of 2 owls. So he has been toggling between tables during the discussion. And when we get ahead of him, that's when we have an echo. So thank you, Brendan, for working with us tonight. Article 6, shall the district vote to appropriate $81,500 for capital improvements to the Fall Mountain Regional High School to abate asbestos in one room, replace library rooftop unit, and rebuild water pumps with said funds to come from the Fall Mountain Regional High School Capital Reserve Fund. Any discussion on Article 6? Yes. We'll start with Mr. Watson.
Yeah, I'm Leroy Watson from Walpole. The information paragraph for warrant 6, the final sentence says an additional $250,000 will be deposited in the Fall Mountain Regional High School Capital Reserve Fund, which increases the value to $858,727.05. Where does that money come from?
Lori?
So there was a warrant article in last March that was approving this.
That was a previous.
Yes, but the RSAs provide that when your audit is complete, you have X amount of time to make a deposit when it's coming from surplus funds.
Okay.
And our audit is almost complete, but not yet complete.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Saul?
I'm Jesse from Leiden. I just had a question on the asbestos removal of all the different buildings. Is it in there just for one room because it's awesome and that's what we're down to that needs to get done? Or is it only being appropriated to spread out the cost?
Lori?
I believe that it's a matter of it's the cost factor for one room at a time. And rather than going in and doing an entire building, trying to benefit multiple communities. That's my understanding.
And I think it could be worth looking into, the cost of doing one room at a time. How much of a savings you might be seeing versus, you're bringing in crews to do the same work, the same cleanup, the same equipment that they need to use, and there could be a cost savings in doing more than one room at a time. Probably not something you guys have discussed, just coming from the contractor world. I know we just do one window versus 10 windows. There's a savings there and the benefit of getting the asbestos out, but, so I was just curious of the stats we're on where all the buildings were at with asbestos. So thank you.
I would just like to add that is something we have talked about, at length. And there is a facilities committee coming in the next year that will be charged with looking at what is left, what that entails, and then voting on some of those things so that we have a full picture of what we're up against. And yes, hopefully realizing some of those mobilization costs, so to speak. So, thank you for the community for excellent.
Mr. Kane?
This 81,500 for these three seems really low in my experience. Can you break that down, please? We're talking about the asbestos, we pump rebuild.
So the bill that I was given for this is 24,000 for the asbestos abatement for one room. The library rooftop unit is 50,000, and for rebuilding water pumps would be a 75.
Thank you for the question. Any further discussion on Article 6? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Michael?
Yes.
Ahmed?
Yes.
St. Pierre, yes?
Delesio, yes.
KBS.
Steve Wall.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Jenny, yeah.
Moving on to Article 7. Shall the district vote to appropriate $150,000 for engineering study for high school repaving and second access project with said funds to come from the Fall Mountain Regional High School Capital Reserve Fund? Any discussion on Article 7?
Engineering Charlestown. Have we gotten a quote for the engineering cost? Or an estimate from somebody?
Yeah, this is to,
So this is just throwing a number out there?
I think that, this body, estimated it at 10% of what total cost of the project could be, based on numbers that were provided, in July, I think, for RFPs. I think that's how we want to suggest.
question. It says, repaving and second access project. Do we have a breakdown between the cost of those two as it relates to the engineering study? She must be on mute. I can't hear her.
Steve, can you repeat your question for Lori?
The $150,000 refers to a study for the repaving and second access project. So, I mean, those are two different things. I'm just wondering if we have an estimate on how much of each of those two things cost, because there's probably no question in my mind we're going to proceed with the paving. Whether or not we proceed with the second access is another issue. It'd probably be a good idea to know what that costs up front.
So we do not have, project costs. The idea that we would do, an engineering study. So we have consistent specs for people to bid out the project. I do not have a breakdown of a separate, study for access versus, repaving. I think the intent was for that to be a single combined.
Just a suggestion to the school board, because I realize this is not the budget committee's article. But you might want to serve that up as two separate articles because it's two issues.
The intention of the article is to survey the entire property and get it done at one time. And then there are 3 different phases to the future project that this survey would allow us to do, this engineering project. 1 being the parking lot, 2 being the access road, and 3 being this second egress that Homeland Security has recommended we have. So each of those 3 projects will come for the voting public separately.
Okay. I mean, I just, if I were not in support of one of those, I probably wouldn't be in support of studying it in the first place. That's all my point is.
Point taken. Mr. Kane?
It's a really vague statement for engineering study. Be asking for, I know it's a neutral, but still. We need a little more information on study for this project. Are you drilling holes? Are you drilling multiple holes? The whole parking lot, access road, to see what our substrate is? 150,000, you can just pay the whole thing, and be done with it.
For 100,
Isn't something you?
for 100, okay, I just want to clarify your statement. For 150,000, we paid the whole thing and be done with it?
Yeah.
We're looking at $1 million. So 150,000 is 10% of an estimated cost.
Okay, so can you please explain what this study entailed?
Okay,
This study is to take a survey of the entire property that we're sitting on currently.
That's what you just mentioned.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to start it.
I can't hear everything.
I try to speak up.
Use your Mad Mountain voice.
By what?
Mad Mountain voice.
Nice.
So, when this property was built, it was, there were pieces and parts of it built, there are different maps, but there is not one concise map that shows every building, every septic system, every drainage pipe, all of those things together. And so what we're looking to have completed is a single map showing everything that we're up against so that we can use it towards all of these future projects. So there are things that need to be done. We've been here since 19, so they started building in 1954, I think. And so there's been a lot done here. And so we want to be able to move forward efficiently. This will allow us to do that.
So I think to make this Article 7 read a whole lot better, you should probably put that whole paragraph in that. Because all this says is repaving and second access.
We can definitely add more information and we will discuss it again at the deliberative, but she suggested.
Mr. Saul?
Jeff, from my business. So I just wanted to comment on the survey thing. From another meeting I had gone to, a lot of discussion about this and what that survey is able to, and I know that a lot of paving companies and companies that are gonna put in roads, won't even give the school an estimate for accurate depiction of the plan. And so they're kind of like, hey, until we know exactly what we're working to, we can't give you a price. So then you'd be looking at giving everybody a price that isn't accurate, and then that just makes it go better. So I agree the wording should be done a little differently to be more clear, because people are gonna say, well, what's the cost of the paving? What's the cost of the road? Well, we can't really get those numbers until there's some proper survey that's up to date and inclusive of the entire campus.
Should say survey, not engineer.
Well, right,
That's very different.
yeah.
Mr. Shansky?
I just want to confirm what Mr. Woods just said. I would highly recommend just completely rewriting Article 7 and saying, shall the district vote to appropriate that sum to conduct a detailed survey of the entire property, and then you can go on to explain why. And did I understand correctly that there's no supporting documents for that 150,000? It's just a wild guess.
It is based on a number,
What is that number? Where did you get that number? Just explain it to me. Walk us through it.
as Ms. Schmidt said, it is 10% of an estimated amount.
What's the backup for that estimated amount? A wild guess?
Mr. Botting is not here to back up that information, but we can get an answer for you.
Thank you.
I would like to add strategic data suggestion here. It will also, when we hire somebody to do the survey, that particular company will also do documents to submit to anybody who would like to estimate these projects. So they will create, I believe it's called an RFQ. But there is more than just the survey, it is the engineering of the future project,
And the engineering and what?
the future projects.
And what are the future projects? Just the road?
There are 3 projects that we're looking to do in the future. So this allows that to come into fruition, each of them brought separately later.
What are the projects?
The access road,
Yeah.
which would also include the transportation parking lot that is not paved where we park all of the buses.
Yep.
There's the parking lot itself, so that's a separate, that's number 2. And then to look at a second egress from this property as recommended by Homeland Security.
To clarify, it's my understanding that this engineering study would cover all 3 of those projects in the early phases. Those individual projects would be voted on separately at a later time.
That is the goal, yes. We don't know what the cost of those projects are going to be in the future, so we can't say that, yes, this will cover everything. But at this point, this covers what we're looking at right now in order to lay the groundwork for those projects.
So the 150,000 was the pair 17 documents.
That's the way I interpret it. You guys don't have to print from this place.
Yeah, that I don't know, but I think the idea of this article was to get to a point where you have a set of bid documents that you can go out with.
At this time, they do not exist.
They don't exist.
A comprehensive plan of this property does not exist.
This is school, right?
That's embarrassing. Yes. And we're trying to remedy it.
That's one born.
I can appreciate that, but I know you. As a taxpayer, that's embarrassing. Yep. It was also embarrassing when the roof caved in on this building. There have been enough embarrassments over the years. We're trying to remedy this one.
Just a clarification, Gabe, the access, no, not the access road, the second egress road. The second egress road is not intended to be paved, however, though, right?
It's simply, as it stands, something that will be wide enough for emergency vehicles to access the school in case our main egress is blocked.
Right. But that second egress road is not intended to be paved. Some of them gravel, something else, but not asphalt.
Absolutely correct in that.
Okay, so then when we're bidding the project on paving, it's really limited to the other two projects. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 7? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Michael?
Yes?
Around, Ahmed?
No.
St. Pierre, yes?
Barone, no.
Delcio, yes.
JB, yes.
T, yes.
Joey, yes.
Shelley, no.
Alyssa, yes. Jenny, yes. T, yes.
Moving on to Article 8. Shall the district vote to raise and appropriate up to $250,000 to be placed in the district's capital reserve funds with the breakdown as follows: 7.18% up to $17,951 to be added to the Ackworth Capital Reserve Fund, 13.94% up to $34,842 to be added to the Alsted Capital Reserve Fund, 45.09% up to $112,730 to be added to the Charlestown Capital Reserve Fund, 5.15% up to $12,868 to be added to the Langdon Capital Reserve Fund, 28.64% up to $71,609 to be added to the Walpole Capital Reserve Fund, with said funds come solely from any year-end unassigned general fund balance. These funds are to be held by the trustees of trust funds in the respective towns, and no withdrawal shall be made without consent of the voters. Discussion on Article 8.
Yeah, I want to go back. The trust funds are not held in individual towns. It's all in Charlestown, I believe.
When they were set up, the SAU was located in Charlestown.
Right, but this says it's being held in respective towns. It's not.
Not.
Not trust funds or a child fund.
Well, they're not in Walpole.
Okay.
Or some of them are not in Walpole, so we should clarify where the trust funds are actually being held,
Oh, percent.
or the respective funds, yeah.
I thought Charlestown was holding all of them, but, and yes.
Yeah,
that-
that's what I thought too.
And that relates to when the office was up there,
Right,
because it was in close proximity.
yeah.
We have Mr. Upton looking closely at it.
Because I don't understand the question.
Well, the last sentence says that are held by the trustees of trust funds in the respective towns. But what I'm saying is that they're not held in the respective towns. They're held in,
Maybe, deleting words in the respective towns.
Yes.
right,
Just say to be held by the
trustees of trust funds, right?
No withdrawal shall be.
That's fine, just the word respective towns, they're not all there,
Just delete some words and it works.
then it works, right?
Thank you.
Do that need to be a motion to amend the article?
No, because the school board controls the wording of the warrant, we'll just delete that.
Okay, striking in the respective towns from the last sentence of the article. Any discussion on Article 8? Mr. Spilsbury?
Harry Spilsbury, Charlestown. I just want to make the observation that if Article 8 is approved, then when you go to the spreadsheet of the proposed budget, and you look down at the last row, there is no entry there. That's because the warrant's contingent that it's passed. It says the budget. So $250,000 would be added here if Article 8 is passed. And then the total budget in that event would be $39,136. I would suggest that 250 be placed in this spreadsheet for the delivered session, even if it requires an asterisk that says note below, subject to approval of one Article 8.
Lori?
So the format of the spreadsheet and the documentation that's presented complies with law. And
This is a separate warrant article to be decided.
by.
Who's on the line? Besides Steve.
Okay. So it's to be decided by the public. If it passes, then it goes into the budget. If it doesn't pass it, then it goes into the budget.
I understand that, but in the nature of disclosure and education, some kind of notation should be made that if Article 8 is passed, it adds to the budget. Yes, that's correct. And there should be some way of indicating what the consequence of Article 8 is on the number.
If I might add, this $250,000 only is relevant if there is a surplus to the budget. It is then part of the surplus. It isn't raised by anything. It simply doesn't go back against the tax rate in the next fiscal year. So it wouldn't, I don't see how it would fit in that line.
It also is getting.
That's very fair. Attention upon that. And
Which is so obvious.
this is brand. I think it's not a good thing. This creates distorted impression that we actually reduce the budget by 250,000. That is not what we'll find. That is not what we're going to happen. It's not asking for this. So there should be some way of indicating that I think the consequence of those contingencies are related to that and surplus increase. So I mean, the irony is a year from now, we can see. And I think it's only in the spreadsheet for the current year, but somehow we weren't allowed to disclose it in advance.
But it is not an additional 250,000. It is within the budget number as presented. It is simply moved between a line to a new line, stating it is a surplus.
It's actually being distributed in capital reserve accounts.
Not being spent, so to speak.
That is the upper limit, so the operating budget would in theory be at least $200,000 less on the actual, in order for that $250,000 to appear on that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 8? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Michael?
Yes.
Ahmed?
No.
St. Peter, yes.
Delesio, yes.
yes.
Varone, yes.
Teeth, no.
Yes.
Shelby, yes.
Melissa, no. Jenny, yes. Keith, no.
It doesn't mean. Recommendations. I would discuss it, we can discuss it just because it does result in savings. And those people from Charlestown might want to hear, thought about it.
I do. Is it just a misprint that we didn't put school board recommended, et cetera, under this
It's just not.
But it will,
be.
but we're gonna do a vote. Thank you.
Does that make it a money article then?
No, it's just,
It's just also, the budget committee does not have a say on it. It'll be taken up by the school board.
So, Article 9.
Shall the Charlestown voters vote to close and to consolidate the North Charlestown Community School with the Charlestown Primary School in the 2024-2025 school year? I will tell you, there is also a public hearing for this article next week at the Charlestown Middle School Library, Thursday, the 18th at 5:30 p.m. So we encourage everybody to come. Because of the vote last year, this will only count votes from Charlestown voters. They're the only ones that will have an effect from this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the operating budget for that school, 21, 22 was $1.2 million. So if you shut down that school, obviously teachers gonna move to different parts of the district and other staffing positions. But how is it only $189,000 savings?
Because you're looking at 1.2 million for 21-22. Last year, there was a consolidation of those teachers, and so they were moved into the Charlestown Primary School budget as well as the Charlestown Middle School budget. And so it was not, the expense for the North Charlestown School for this current fiscal year is not 1.2 million. So they've already been moved when you're looking at, okay.
Like down, you take this, that facility goes back down. Or did that change?
Actually, it will only go to the town of Charlestown if, in the case of the withdrawal of Charlestown from the school district, Charlestown was still responsible for the education of North Charlestown students.
I can't hear.
I'm sorry. So the question was about whether the school would go back to the town of Charlestown if it in fact was not used as an educational facility. And we do have some questions about how that will work, and we'll have more answers at the hearing. But it was determined that the school, the Farwell School, the North Charlestown Community School would go to the town of Charlestown during the withdrawal study that was done a few years ago, because the town of Charlestown would still have been responsible for the education of Charlestown students there. If the Fall Mountain Regional School District is still responsible for the education of Charlestown students, but no longer uses that building, that campus as an educational facility, it actually belongs to the Farwell trustees, and that is written right into the deed. And we are getting some clarification on that, how it all works. If it's determined whether we need to have classrooms in there or if the district just uses it as some sort of facility for programming and whatnot is to be determined. But at this point, it doesn't immediately go back to the town of Charlestown.
Can I get a clarification?
There are lots of things to talk about, for sure.
Can I get a clarification on the $189,000? What in the information section, it says which is not included in the budget. So it means the $189,000 to operate that school is not included in the budget. Am I correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so if this article were to fail in Charlestown, where's the 189 come from?
If it was Charlestown K-8 expense or if it was method-wise expenses, but that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay. I mean, I don't think it'll fail, so I'm not overly concerned about it, but if it did fail and we don't have the money in Charlestown's budget to keep the building open, the way it's running now, essentially, we all end up paying for keeping the building open because you don't have any specific Charlestown money to keep the building open.
I think you raise a good point. Because if this article does fail, you're still gonna operate the school. So I think I'd like to talk to the board and exploring a little bit more about proper way to structure this. We, maybe there needs to be a contingency built into this that allows the budget to be decreased by that amount. And that it would be attributed only to Charleston.
Yeah, that sounds like a good workaround. Basically, we're short $189,000 if this thing fails, is what I'm hearing. Because we've already removed it from our budget. And then we got to keep the school open to the tune of $189,000 that we don't have in our budget. And more specifically in Charlestown's budget. So yeah, some kind of a toggle, some kind of a contingency would probably be a good idea. Might say something like, if this motion fails, you are effectively raising $189,000 so that the school can be maintained as is. Gonna need legal help on this one. Sorry, Mr. Upton. I mean, do we agree that if this passes, we're fine, but if this fails, we got a problem?
Steve, there's other discussion happening.
I'm sorry. I can't hear it. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No one's ignoring you. I just want
It's okay.
to. All right. You have a question now in the audience. Okay.
It's late, so I was wondering if maybe the wording's just off and we're interpreting this wrong. It says closure of the building results in savings, let's call it $190,000, which is not included in the proposed budget. I think what it might be saying is, hey, everybody, you know, it's gonna save us some money, but that savings isn't in the budget. You're only gonna save it if you vote in favor of this. So who actually wrote this and what was their intent? Are they here?
So the intent, it is not included in the budget.
What, the savings or the money to operate?
Money to operate is not in the budget. And so we threw some more wording, some verbiage out there for discussion by the board. The board has not discussed that wording yet.
There will be more discussion on it. We'll have more detailed information at the hearing on
Thursday.
No disrespect, but I'm just saying this because I was gonna find a workaround and this, some people are passionate about that school thing. Now, are they still? I don't know.
They are.
But I know at one point in time, it was very much like typical of North Charleston. And I'm just saying, like, you would have to amend what you just voted on for Article 1 to make sure that money's in. Right?
So now I mean, another public hearing, correct? Can't add money back in the budget.
Now that they vote.
No, well, without having another public hearing. You can do a public hearing. You can do it right now.
Make that decision right now, and then we'll agree to.
Okay, I just a little nervous about that.
Appreciate it.
Would seem that that would be the appropriate consideration if the 189 is not included in the operating budget. You have no contingency. So if the article close fails, you have no ability to operate. Or the money would have to be found in other areas.
The only other possibility is to ask the public to change the order of the articles, because I know the budget article has to be first, but you could vote to handle this first. If it fails, excuse me, if it passes, we're fine. If it fails, we could amend the budget up accordingly.
No, because we're SB2 and you can't do that with ballot. The only way you could do it is to add contingency language.
That's true. Be only the deliberative session. You're right.
Into the operating budget, but indicate that the operating budget would be reduced by 189 should Article 9 pass.
I guess the question I would have is what's in $190,000? What does that represent?
$190,000 represents pre-K status with secretary there, correct?
So 100,
Or one admin, correct?
so there's a secretarial position in that and a custodial position. And building overhead, because the pre-K teachers would move to, that's been shifted into other line items.
So it's the cost to keep the building heated, the water running, somebody looking after it.
Right. Sounds a little high, but right. In theory, right.
That as a school board member, because what I thought that number represented was moving the savings from moving pre-K and the staff to the primary, and that if, and that discussion was had with the principal, that was in the best interest of the pre-K students and the staff that are up there isolated to go to the primary. And I thought that that savings was that number, and that if there is nobody occupying the building, I don't understand, if there's nobody in there and we're just heating it and there's electricity, it can't possibly be $190,000.
There are two benefited positions as well as the operating costs for the building.
But if there's nobody in the building.
No, right, correct. That is the savings that is incurred by not having those two individuals and the cost of the building. Everybody, to your understanding is correct, that we move the costs for pre-K into the primary.
Right, so, but I think there's confusion happening. Because what I'm hearing from some individuals is the 189, 429 is to keep it status quo.
No.
No.
It is not. We can certainly change the wording. I was asked to put something in. And so I think I was trying to walk the line between not electioneering and influencing, and providing information. So we, you know, I believe that the intent is to discuss it with our legal counsel.
So my suggestion would be to add the 189, 429 back into the operating budget with a note at the end of the article that indicates that if Article 9 passes, the operating budget will be reduced by that amount. I'm just not sure about how we distribute that to Fulton Charleston.
I'm also not sure.
Well, I think
If they're put into the budget, it's put it more in the budget.
that's where that goes. And then if it comes back out. Because we'll know before we send those. If it passes, we'll know.
Why would you put a dollar value in there? That's gonna influence the vote. So I would say that dollar value should come out of there completely. The votes to close the school or not close the school.
Yeah. I think that I agree with Steve. I think the confusion is coming from that dollar amount that we elected to put in the information on the warrant. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not up in the article, it's in the information. So the 189, I believe how we just discussed it the other night was, we don't put it in the budget, and if Charlestown continues to want to operate it, then it's almost like a vacancy management type
In reverse.
issue. Do you know what I mean? So we
we know not all of the positions are gonna be filled. It's similar to what the budget committee says. We know all the positions are not going to be filled. So we have that money in the budget there. If you're, and that, I believe was the discussion on Monday, was to leave the money out of it and use it as a vacancy net. The board, this board, would use kind of like what the budget committee does, but we would use our own vacancy management for this 189. And I believe Lori may have kept about $20,000 in the budget, because I believe we talked about it. So it's not 189 vacancy management, it would be like 169. But this, and that's why I wish Jamie was here, because she's the one that said, let's leave it out of the budget, and we're gonna do a vacancy management if the article doesn't pass.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that in that case, while vacancy management tends to be across the board because it's random, this is very town specific. And what it will mean is if this doesn't pass, we've got this thing built so it does pass and everything will be fine. But if it doesn't pass, that 189 is what it's going to cost to keep the building open beyond the teachers that get moved out of it. That's, as you said, that's the secretary, that's the custodian, it's the heat, it's the insurance, it's everything else that goes into that number. That will be exclusively a Charlestown expense by virtue of having defeated this article, but it will be borne by all 5 towns because you don't have 189,000 in the budget. That's a problem.
I didn't understand how Jamie, my understanding was involved in how this is structured. So I really can't make a recommendation without speaking to her. I understand there's some method to her structuring of this warrant article. Without talking with her, I don't want the budget committee to be adding money to a budget that may not be needed. I just don't have her here to speak to her.
And while it was a good thought, Mr. Upton.
It's my understanding it wasn't prior. Where this was discussed, right? Jamie was there. I just don't want to add money to the budget that Jamie may feel we don't need. She's the one who's really been involved in this deeply. So I would defer to her without having her here. I'm not prepared to undo what she's.
And you can't put a contingency in Article 1 because Article 1 is prescribed by law. Am I correct, Mr. Upton? The exact language is in the RSA. With 2 blanks to be filled in.
There would be a way to do a contingency, but I'm not sure we're gonna need it until I talk with. And it's been disclosed and discussed, we're all aware of this issue. But without talking with her, I don't want to make any changes.
I agree.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Roy Watson from Walpole. If we got to the point where we were recommending that the budget committee add in the $189,429 back into Article 1, that be subject to recalculation as far as what the default budget would be?
Conceivably, yes.
So that in theory, if it was incorporated in Article 1 and also incorporated into the proposed, into the default budget, the success of Article 9 would result in extra money being available to the district that no longer has a purpose assigned to it.
Again, I haven't spoken with Jamie, so I'm not sure what her thoughts were in developing the structure of these articles. But if we were to put the 189 into the operating budget, it would also go into the default budget. There would also need to be a contingency added Article 1, indicating that Article 9 passes, the operating budget would be reduced by 189. That would be the alternative structure. I'm just not sure how Jamie structured her thoughts on this. Until I can speak to her, I don't want to make any changes. There may be adjustments in the budget that I'm unaware of. But to your point, I would not recommend adding it to the budget without it, if it needs to be added, without a contingency being added as well. But then again, it may not be necessary at all. But once I talk to JB, I can make that determination.
So will we need a second budget hearing, if we need to take that route?
I think where it's been properly discussed and disclosed here, that there is a possibility that we might save this money in the operating budget. I think the one hearing may be satisfactory, but I will discuss it with the DRA tomorrow as to whether the second budget hearing will be necessary.
Might there be a way to modify the language of 9? To put the toggle right in 9? If this passes, X. If it fails, we raise and appropriate $189,000 for Charlestown. Well, the result is we raise $189,000 for Charlestown. Just a thought. I'm in uncharted waters here. I admit it.
Yes, Steve, it's being discussed.
Yeah, the other option might be to reword Article 9 such that if it fails, it will result in an additional 189,000 maybe. I gotta think about this and think about the appropriate way to structure it without knowing what Jamie has already calculated, which may already be included in the budget. I just really don't want to go much further with the recommendation. I'd like to speak with Jamie and the DRA about this issue. It may be that she has already concluded that no additional money needs to be raised if the article fails. I just have to speak with them.
Can I provide some clarification? So Jamie didn't actually do anything with the budget, it was just the discussion on the thing. So the way it is structured is that we moved the costs for the teachers and the benefits that would continue. We moved them into CPS, and those positions are funded in the budget. The cost for the custodial and secretarial positions were eliminated, and I believe are shared on our list of eliminations. And the costs, any remaining costs for the building, because we would no longer own the building, well, we don't own the building, sorry, strike that. We wouldn't be responsible for maintaining a building. Those costs were also eliminated from the budget, and as such, the sum total was eliminated, it is like deducted from the default budget. So that's the way the budget is structured as far as language for the warrant article and how to address that I would have to defer to the board and the discussion that occurred on Monday.
I'd like to speak to Jamie.
Okay, so there will be plenty more discussion about Article 9. Bill, did you have something? Oh. And so if it's determined that we need a second hearing, that will all be brought forward. At this time, we haven't done that. We're not doing that. So we will be removing Article 10 from the warrant. So I will move to Article 11. Shall the voters of the Fall Mountain Regional School District vote to amend Article 18 of the district's Articles of Agreement to add the bolded language and remove the language that is crossed out below? And so in the final bullet point where it says closure of, it crossed out North Walpole and North Charleston, which was passed by the district last year. It has been amended to any elementary school. And then further, the cost of such expenditure to be apportioned exclusively to the town or pre-existing district where the elementary school is located shall be passed or defeated on the basis of votes tallied only in the identified town, pre-existing district, with any appropriation for expenditures to be apportioned exclusively to any such town or pre-existing district. Any vote taken under such an article shall be considered a vote of the district, and any expense approved under such an article shall be considered an appropriation of the district in accordance with RSA 195:14. This article shall be null and void if the district subsequently changes the manner in which it apportions capital expenses. 2/3 majority vote required. Are there any questions or comments to be made on Article 11? Seeing none, I will ask the school board for their vote.
Sorry, I was just formulating a question.
Okay.
We don't need Article 10 to make this change to Article 18.
So I spoke with this today, because if you decide to close, the only reason you need Article 10 would be because it references elementary schools that you are operating. And if you ever decide to close a school, you have to come back to the voters anyways. So what I suggested is rather than removing all references to all elementary schools, if there's a move to close an elementary school and the town where that school is located wants to close it, that our same article authorizing to close it could include the article to amend the articles removing reference to that school. There's no need to just remove all references to all schools at this time, because you don't know if any schools. Why not do it when we ask permission to close? Just seems to make more sense than removing all references.
Thank you for that clarification.
But again, that's the two warrant articles to close the schools. Because all the town, take for example, Sarah Porter, we decided to close Sarah Porter, only the residents of Sarah Porter vote on closing Sarah Porter. All of the residents of that's community to vote on amending article. So it's still need to be two.
That's correct. At the same time we're doing it, and you could make the amendment to Article 3 contingent upon the underlying district voting to close the school. So everything would be symmetrical.
I don't disagree with what you just said as a matter of legal advice. But as a matter of tactics and strategy, I think it was a smart thing to lead with a warrant article on $100,000 last year and then bring it back to voters this year. I think that's a two-step process over the course of 2 years gives you a better opportunity to engage with 7 communities.
Don't disagree, and that may be the move in the future. But I think there was also some discussion about, do we want people to get worried that we intend to close all the elementary schools when that's not even something that's being contemplated? So why remove references to them and the articles?
Joe, did you have something you wanted to add?
I don't know, I didn't consider mentioning that.
I was just making sure your question was answered.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for your.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, seeing none. Joe?
Yes.
On 11.
Yes.
I'm gonna hold for a moment. Let's say yes, and I'll tell you how you start with it.
The budget doesn't have to vote on them.
It does.
And so that brings us to the end of our warrant. Is there anything anyone would like to add this evening?
Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Ms. Horton?
I would just like to commend the budget committee, although they haven't done everything that people would like. You've made a substantial reduction in things that I appreciate. Thank you. Yeah, you can have your bicycle.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Need a roll call? All right, roll call vote to adjourn, Michael?
Yes.
Ahmed? Here, yes?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Barone, yes.
I have your a bag in my car for you. Send this to your son.
To Jesse.
Yeah, and I can